Hey, this is John Hope Bryant, and this is the Money and Wealth podcast series. This is season 2, and we're going to break some serious myths today on this episode. We're going to deal with an issue that I thought was settled, and the data would suggest, and my conversations with people as I go around the country and around the cities and neighborhoods would suggest this is more than not settled. How do you build wealth in America? What's the number one way? Made more simply, should you become a homeowner? Should you be a homeowner? A lot of folks, to my surprise, particularly a lot of young people, have said the answer to that is no. They don't want to be a homeowner. They've been told by the so-called wealthy and so-called successful that they shouldn't be. Don't waste your time, don't waste your money, people tell them. The title for this episode is Home Ownership, the number one way you build wealth in America, and how you can start right now. More so, I'm going to get into why you should start right now and what are the steps to starting right now. We're going to get into this in a very deep way. I'm going to break this down because everybody tells you to get rich, more so how to be wealthy, which there is a difference, but they don't tell you how. And folks give you a lot of slogans and a lot of messages which are wrong, and worse, some people are actually lying to you. I have not quite figured out why they're lying to you, although greed's probably one of the motivations to turn everybody into renters. That's another topic for another time. One could argue that somebody has a plan that within 5 years or so, that 60% of everything in this country or more should just be rented, and people are just paying for the experience, whether it's renting a vacation or renting a night out, a overnight stay, or renting a car, or renting where you live. Again, I'm not making a value judgment here, but here's the problem with this argument that is being made. I'm not arguing with whether, I'm a landlord. I built one of the largest portfolios of rental home ownership or rental properties, single family rental properties by a person of color in the country. Sold the company about 3 years ago. Embedded a lot of financial literacy in the rent to own program, by the way, into the model, but that's an aside. So I'm a landlord. Why would I want you to rent? I'm about to do another business venture in real estate around a multifamily. Why would I want you to rent? Because I want you ultimately to be free. Everybody coming up probably worked at McDonald's or someplace like that, convenience store, fast food restaurant, but that doesn't mean unless you just love that industry, you should stay there forever. Here's what I find odd about, so the world should be a sort of a stair step, right? So you rent until you can afford to own, but here's what I find really odd, first of all, about the folks telling you not to own a home. If you look on television to all the talking heads telling you not to own a home, do a little research and you'll find that every one of them owns a home. I'm just laughing because the extreme irony of this, it's almost just purely insulting, actually. Everybody telling young people and struggling people and poor people and even middle class people that they shouldn't own a home. Well, those people, overwhelmingly, 99.9% of them, own a home. Here's the simple fact. Renting keeps you broke. Owning starts that climb. Median net worth of renters in this country, in America. I know the podcast is global, but I'm going to deal with America here first, and then you can extrapolate this data to other developed countries because a lot of this data is similar. Median net worth of renters in America, $6,300. Median net worth of a homeowner in America, hold on to your boots, $255,000. Homeownership gap, 44% of blacks, Americans, African Americans own a home, give or take, compared to 72 to 75% of their white counterparts. And this is not because people who are of a different hue take a different intellectual cue. As my friend Michael Milken would say, intelligence is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. So a lot of the wealth gap in this country, if you look at black and white as the bookends of wealth disparity, which I think is pretty fair, a lot of that is captured or not captured in home ownership. Here's a hard truth, a very simple one. The number one way you build wealth in America is home ownership, period, full stop. There are three things that have never gone down in American history: home ownership values, stock market values, American GDP, gross domestic product, the income of the economic activity of the nation. GDP is about $30 trillion today, probably about a fourth of global GDP, of all GDP. You can put the top 2 or 3 economies inside of a bucket and put that bucket inside of the American economy. What's the engine of the American economy? I already told you, stock market, yes, it busted in the Great Depression, but it came roaring back. Homeownership has had several bursts, including the 2008 economic crisis that even I got caught in. I'll explain that in a moment when I tell you my own personal story. And there have been crises before that, but real estate kept, homeownership in particular, kept roaring back. So real estate will go up in value. Nothing is guaranteed. It'll hit some wall. There'll be a recession. Okay? It recedes. That's what recession recedes. That's what that means in layman terms. It recedes. It pulls back as an industry, as a sector, in this particular case, as relates to value. But then at some point, it corrects and resets above the line. I'll repeat that. The country's real estate, home ownership, think about the Texas real estate that you could almost give away 25 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that. Think about Detroit, right across the street from Canada, right on the water. Here's $1 for a house. Think about all these places, out Las Vegas, where people are like, it's over, it's done. Miami, they came roaring back, oftentimes eclipsing former valuations of that same house. They go up in value, they recede. Poor people sell on the dip, by the way, lack of financial literacy, lack of confidence. And then the real estate recovers in time above the line. Let me tell you my own personal story, because I think it might resonate with you. I'm going to tell you the most recent story first and then go backwards. So not the 700 homes that I own through a company I sold, the Promise Homes Company. I'm still a shareholder, but I'm like a limited partner. Somebody else owns it and runs it in the last 3.5 years. But I built that company from zero to about $150 million of market value. Before that, I had one house. And before that, I had a small condo townhouse. I also owned a 3-unit apartment building that my father stayed in dignity the last years of his life. But let's stay focused right now on my condo townhouse. I bought that condo townhouse 2006-ish. I believe that's the date ranges, but around that time, right before the economic crisis. I paid about $220,000 for it, as I recall. It's about 1,500 square feet, 7122 La Tijera Boulevard. You can look it up. It's worth over $1 million today, I'm told. But anyway, I bought it for $220,000. It was 1,500 square feet. And I lived there, and the recession hit, the economic crisis hit in 2008, the mortgage crisis. And all of my friends, let me insert my broke friends, they meant well, but it's what they didn't know that was killing them, but they thought they knew. Always consider the source for your advice if you're going to take it. People can love you and give you bad advice, or they can manipulate you and give you the advice that benefits them. To rationalize is to tell rational lies. So my broke friends were saying, sell, sell, sell. Prices are going down. What did I tell you? Poor people sell on the dip. Warren Buffett once said, if people are greedy, be afraid. If people are afraid, be greedy. So people were afraid. And all of my friends, quotation marks, were telling me to sell. I thought rationally, well, I got to live somewhere. Why would I sell the place I own? Like, okay, the values are not what I want them to be. You know, that can self-correct. But I live in this place. So I'll just stay here and ignore the appraised value. The appraised value had dropped into the ones. I think it was about 160 or so, 160, 170, 180. I bought it for 220. I ignored it, ignored the noise. That's one of my habits, by the way. One of my success hacks is to just ignore the noise in my life. And around me, I mean. Just walk through life constantly oblivious of most things around me because it just doesn't matter. I am encouraged about 2009 by my mentor, Ambassador Andrew Young, and one of his friends, Sam Baycoat, to move to Atlanta for a range of reasons. I decided to take them up on their offer because Ambassador Young was my absolute hero, still is to this day, my role model, and he sort of took over the role from Reverend Dr. Cecil Chip Murray in Los Angeles of raising me as an adult, mentoring me into leadership. So I moved to Atlanta, find a place there, and buy it and rent out my LA condo townhouse to a LAPD police officer who didn't pay rent on time, I might add. But as long as he paid rent, that was fine. And I had to cough up the property tax payment once a year when that came due. But other than that, everything was covered. The mortgage was covered. In fact, most of the property taxes were covered also, small out of my pocket for me. Forgot about it. So 2009 goes by, 2010 goes by, 2011 goes by, 2012 goes by. I'll have to chase the guy every now and then for rent, but he always pays. Oh, eventually. I always pay my mortgage. Credit score is great. Minor changes of, there's a faucet that goes bad or a toilet that needs unclogging or something. But keep in mind, by the way, no one washes rental cars. So when you own a house or own a property, you're going to be stuck with the maintenance bill, but that's fine. You also get all the benefits of homeownership, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But again, follow the story. So I pay these maintenance things. I'm paying property taxes. He's paying me rent. It all sort of basically evens out. I didn't really make much money net on cash flow. But, this is my asset, and I own it. It's in my name, and I believe in real estate long term, so I just kept it. So now it's 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016. And around this time, me and the family decided we wanted to switch up from the house I was staying in Atlanta. I bought a house in Atlanta and wanted to buy a family home And this family home needed a lot of work. It was owned by a famous celebrity, but had been abandoned for years. The infrastructure was solid, the bones of it was solid, but it needed a lot of help. And we bought the house. Well, we wanted to buy the house, but it was $750,000 in 2016-ish. I call. I'm trying to, I'm trying to figure out how to, buy this house. I wanted to keep the home I was staying in at that point in Atlanta. So I called the broker, and my mortgage broker, African-American man, Daniel Lowe, who at some point I'll have on this podcast. I called him, hey, Daniel, what do you think I can sell that condo townhouse for in Los Angeles? Mind you, I bought it for $220. Last time I checked, the value was $160, $180-ish. My friends had told me to sell it. He says, oh, I can probably get you about $750,000. I said, excuse me, what did you say? Can you repeat that again? Is the line gone dead here? And did I just hear through an echo? Did you say $150,000? $750,000. I said, how quickly can you sell this property? He said, I can probably get it sold in a month. Excuse me? Yeah, the market is hot for this kind of property, and he's got a great location at La Tierra near the 405 freeway, which was near economic activity. That's where I always tell you, near transportation, near economic activity, et cetera, near growth. So I said, sell it. Sell it for me. So he lists the property, and within 1 month, true to form, he sells this property, transfers the money to me, and there's something called the 1031 tax-free exchange, which means that you can take the proceeds from a piece of property and sell it into another property, buy another property, without any tax hit whatsoever. Zero. This is the magic of real estate. So I made a capital gain of at least $500,000, okay, which was a huge surprise. And I didn't have to pay a dime of taxes on that $500,000 net proceeds. Well, yeah, after I paid the mortgage down, because I shifted that into buying a new property this particular time in Georgia. I then take out a mortgage with a construction loan, a rehab loan on the new property, and without telling you too much of my family's business, let's just say that new property is doing just fine. And I mean like multi-million-dollar fine, right? Now, I'm not a genius in that example. I didn't pick up and move the property in LA to another location. I didn't rehab it. I didn't do anything fancy. I just kept it and paid the property taxes and paid the mortgage on time and made sure I repaired the sink when it ever got clogged. And my upside was a legal return that rivals anything in almost any business transaction you can imagine. Certainly as a passive investment, it was extraordinary. You've got to admit, these numbers are incredible. I called Daniel back. And mind you, the only money was at risk of mine in this situation was the original down payment on the condo townhouse for $220,000. Let's just say I put 20% cash down. I'm sure I put 10%, but let's just say it was 20%. That's a maximum $45,000-ish. Probably it was more like $25,000. And that down payment, along with me paying occasionally some maintenance work over the next 8 years or so, facilitated a sale for $750,000, most of which was net to me in profit. Think about that. to $40,000, translating into 12x that in profit with no tax bill. Then I then rolled into another property, took out again another loan, which was tax beneficial. Explain that again in a minute. Where I was also not hit with a tax bill legally, and it went up in value considerably and is now clearly in the seven-figure club. So much for somebody saying that owning a home is a bad personal investment. Let's back up now. My mom and dad fought over money. Juanita Smith, Johnny Will Smith, wonderful human beings, incredible role models in many ways. But my dad was financially illiterate and wouldn't listen to my mother, unfortunately, who was a great investor. That together, they would have been excellent if one made the money and one invested the money. One used their income to investment, the other used their income just to pay the household bills. But they didn't, unfortunately, get along like that. We owned, in spite of their frustrations with each other, we owned a gas station at Vernon and Western, southeast corner, still there to this day. We owned an 8-unit apartment building on Santa Barbara Boulevard, now called Martin Luther King Boulevard. We owned our own home on that same street. We owned a nursery business, a cement contracting business. The apartment building we bought for $18,000, give or take, an 8-unit apartment building. We would live in one unit and the rest was profit. We bought this unit for $18,000 in Los Angeles. Last time I checked, it was worth $8 million. We lost it all. You could make the mortgage payment on that 8-unit apartment building from rent from 2 of the 8 units. We lost it all. Now, my dad was a hustler. He was a businessman. The difference between a hustler and a businessman, by the way, or a businesswoman, is paperwork. My dad did not want to do and bother with paperwork. Financially illiterate. They argue, they fought domestic abuse. Number one cause for divorce is money. Number one cause for domestic abuse is money. They fight, they go their separate ways. My mother, California's a community property state. She could have taken him for everything he had. Particularly, she had the kids with her. What a decent, amazing woman. She just left with literally clothes on her back and her 2 kids. One kid had gone to the military. There was a reason they got into a fight in the first place was my dad took the $4,000 my mother saved and wanted to go on some fancy new idea of his. And she was trying to send my brother to a college of his choice so he could be anything he wanted. But when my dad did that, my brother, Dave Darnell Harris, Donnie had to go into the military in order to get a 4-year education. Okay, it's another podcast for another day. But my mother then went to go live with a girlfriend because, well, she wanted financial freedom on her own terms. So now my dad has all these assets now. He's got the apartment. Tell you the power of financial literacy. He has a home. He has the 8-unit apartment building. He has the gas station. Then he's got these other businesses in the cement contracting business. So hold that. Okay, park that for a minute. My mother has nothing. Works in an hourly job at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft and Boeing Aircraft. So having the real estate is not enough. You need financial literacy. You need paperwork. You need to understand how the system works. You need to understand how the tax system works. The entire tax system in America is designed to support home ownership. Hello? Mortgages, when you get a 30-year mortgage on a home, 20 of that 30 years on average, 20 years of that 30-year mortgage is tax deductible. You write it off, you get the money back, all or part, in a tax refund on your tax, as long as you itemize your tax returns. Check with your tax pro on this, don't just listen to me. You get the value of depreciation. If it's an investment property, you write that off. You get the value of appreciation. I've already described that. That's when the property goes up in value and you pay no taxes on that. But check with your tax pro if you do a 1031 tax-free exchange. If you're married and you file tax returns together, it's as much, last time I checked, as $500,000 in free equity when you sell that house. Not a tax exchange. Sell the house, $500,000 of free capital gains. Capital gains tax. Capital gains. That's different from W-2 income, which is around your payroll. Okay. Capital gains is what it sounds like. Capital gains. One, you can do capital gains on stock. Okay. Capital gains on a business when you sell it. Capital gains on stock when you sell it. Capital gains on a home when you sell it. Okay. So my mother goes to live with her girlfriend. Tells me it's my auntie, by the way. I go and this, you know, I'm making the long story short. We had some drama. As I was staying with him, I'd fallen on the porch and was swallowing my tongue, almost choked to death. And this guy OC, who we lived with, who had I don't know if he owned the house or he rented it, but he took care of the house with his girlfriend, who was my mother's friend. And he should have sat down with my mother and said, look, I can't afford to take care of your family and mine. Can we have a family meeting once a week? Can we talk about the money, split the bills? You pay this bill, we'll pay that one. That's what my mother would have done, but no one ever asked her to help. So OC decides to just go, you know, he's got a full-time job, but he decides to go around the corner and sell marijuana. Anyway, I saw him murdered in front of me by the drug dealers for whom this was his real territory. I'm doing the story really quickly because this is not about my story. This is about owning a home and why it's important, how to do it. So my mother earns enough money, saves enough money from living with her girlfriend, and this gentleman who unfortunately lost his life because over money. And I saw it all as a young boy. I think I was 6-ish. And my mother buys a house in our first home in 15502 South Fraley. Essentially, when you buy a house, you remember the address. She buys our first home in 15502 South Fraley without anybody's help. Got a credit score up, right? And got a job, and had saved a down payment. She buys this house. Modest house, but beautiful, in Compton, California. And meanwhile, when I tell you, my dad was balling now. So now let's fast forward. At the end of the day, my mother buys and sells 7 homes. Helps my sister buy a house twice with a down payment. Helped my brother to buy a house with a down payment. She's working an hourly job now. She has a credit score of over 850. Back when it went over more than 850. I think it's capped out at 850 now. She bought all over Southern California and lived below her means. When she passed away 2 years ago, my mother had a net worth of $1 million, working an hourly job, $15 to $18 an hour for 32 years, at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft, now known as Boeing Aircraft. Okay. My dad lost everything. Everything I told you about, the house, the 8-unit apartment building, now worth millions and millions of dollars. The liquor store, not the liquor store, the gas station, lost it all. In fact, I re-engaged with my dad as I was hustling as a businessman, and my dad was staying with a lady he didn't really like, but she had leverage over him because she owned the house that he stayed in, and so he was sort of, I don't know, it was like reverse pimping. He was sort of, I believe, forced to be her boyfriend. Because he wasn't attracted to her. It was obvious she wasn't very attractive in my view. And so I decided that was not the way I wanted my dad to go out. So I offered to buy the property from this lady. She accepted the offer. It was $100,000 or something. I bought the house that he was staying in. I knocked down 3 walls. Remember I told you there was a 3-unit apartment building that I also sold in LA. I knocked down 3 walls, left 1 wall up, again, financial literacy. If you leave 1 wall up, it's not new construction, it's a rehab. Left 1 wall up, it was zone R3. My dad thought it was R4, meaning 4 units. It was R3, 3 units. It was a single family home on a lot zoned R3, which means it's a very valuable lot. I got a loan from Wells Fargo, construction loan from a friend of mine, Tom Swanson there, and unfortunately gave my dad the construction loan proceeds and a credit card. And my God, did he run that into the ground so badly, mismanaged it so badly. I had to go get a refinance of the construction loan. Thank God the market at that point was going up. I'd have been killed financially. I would have had to file bankruptcy. I went back to Wells Fargo. Thank you so much, Tom Swanson, for having empathy on you and grace in your heart. He refinanced that dang on construction loan and got me more proceeds to finish that building. And that's why I always tell you, never make emotional decisions and don't do crap with family other than give them a hug and some love and money you can afford to lose. I put this loan in the hands of my dad. I knew he was financially illiterate, even though he's a great hustler. And he fulfilled his promise of messing it up. I love my dad. Love. My God rest his soul. But boy, did he screw this up and stress me out. And so, I didn't give him that credit card again. I had to pay it was a $6,000 Amex card, American Express balance that he ran up in a month, and I had to pay that off. And that was when $6 grand was everything to me. So, learned a lot of lessons. Right, business is not emotional, it's not personal, it's business. And so, anyways, that property also went up in value. Didn't go up quite as value. It wasn't as much. It didn't go up as rapidly because I had all that debt on it because I had to refinance a construction loan twice. My dad lived in one unit. I took rent from the other two units that paid the mortgage, and so he was able to live in dignity and rent free as he got older. And think about all the people we're going to have, parents getting older. You need to be thinking about what I just told you. So anyway, I cleared the deck on the two properties I had in LA. There's a third one, but there's another story to that. I cleared the deck on those two properties, sold them, took the net proceeds, and transferred it into Atlanta, and the rest, as they say, is history. Let me now come back to some facts. I want you to pay yourself, right? I want you to become your own landlord. I want you to be in a situation where nobody kicks you out of your house. They don't have the power to do that. I remember I was giving a speech somewhere, and the brother's like, John, sorry, talking about home ownership. I don't own the house, the bank owns the house. If you don't pay, right? It's crazy. Like, as long as you pay the mortgage on time, the house is yours, right? And yeah, there's a loan on it, but there's no billionaire, no multi-millionaire, no thousandaire, no, by the way, successful city, county, state, or government, federal government, that didn't do it without good debt. Good debt is tied to something that appreciates. Bad debt is tied to something that depreciates. There are tax benefits to owning a home: mortgage interest deductions, capital gains exclusion. I've covered some of that. It's forced savings account. Every mortgage payment builds equity in the house that you have with your name on it. It's generational wealth. Homes are the number one inheritance passed down in working families. And that's a key phrase now, in working families. All these so-called fancy rich people, and I got somebody in mind who says stupid stuff like this. He lives in Miami. He's very popular, but I don't want to name his name. I'm not trying to demonize him or whatever, but he just gives bad advice. Talking about, he would never put money in a home. He'd only put money in a business. Well, he's also worth $40 million. I mean, so it's crazy. But the average family, right? Do you want to rent someplace, or do you want to own where you live? It's just a common sense to me, right? And when is a good time to buy a house? When you can afford it. 1%, 2%, 3% interest rates, that's not coming back, I don't think, in our lifetime, at least not naturally. The government wants to do something because we have a crisis. They can make rates artificially low. But rates were increased from, again, free money, 1%, 2%, 3%, which again, I think was just an aberration. It happened during the mortgage crisis, by the way, to a very reasonable 5%, 6%. That's still very reasonable. I mean, when my dad was on the scene, my mother was on the scene, I remember mortgages being in the teens, like 15%, 16%. It was crazy. So these are not bad rates. Just get used to it. And if you can afford to own something, just buy it, because it's only going to go up in value. Real estate is just going to keep going up. Like, don't let the perfect be the death of the good. Just buy something somewhere. So let me give you some historical context for why you have a wealth disparity to begin with. You had 40 acres and a mule, that we know that story, but it was only 18,000 families, black Union soldiers, who got the benefit of 40 acres and a mule. And that benefit was actually 400,000 acres divided by 18,000 families as a pilot by Abraham Lincoln, Secretary of War Stanton, and General Sherman after the Civil War. Unfortunately, Lincoln was assassinated, and the people who took over reversed Field Action 15, which was 40 acres and a mule. I don't know if you know that. It was reversed. So people are talking about black people are lazy and all this kind of, it's just not true, right? They gave us this really bad land down the coast. We want beachfront property today, but back in the agricultural age in the 1800s, the last place you wanted land was on the beach. But we didn't complain about it. In fact, we worked that land so hard. In a month, they said, my God, these folks are so industrious. Give them a mule, 40 acres and a mule. The bank came the next month, the Freedmen's Bank, which I have the honor of being able to tell you I'm the only American citizen ever to trigger the renaming of a building on the White House campus. It was called the Treasury Annex Building for 100 years. It's now called the Freedmen's Bank Building, next door to my friends Michael Milken's Milken Center for the Advancement of the American Dream. By the time you listen to this this podcast, it'll be open, by the way. MCAD, you should go see it and go visit the Freedmen's Bank next door, which was the location that Frederick Douglass sat in, where he ran the bank, chartered to teach free slaves about money, financial literacy, circa 1865. So January was the land, February was the mule, March was the bank, and April, unfortunately, Lincoln was assassinated, and the whole dream he had for emancipating and empowering and educating and empowering formerly enslaved people fell apart. And by 1874, that bank had failed because white board members of that bank chartered to serve and domicile the savings of blacks, by the way, had changed the charter of the bank so that they could borrow money. And guess who they loaned the money to? Themselves. Okay, never mind with the history lesson. But that's what happened to the only time the blacks had a chance to get some land after slavery. It was only 400,000 acres. You might think that's a lot of money. I'm about to tell you about 270 million acres in a second. So that's that experiment. So 1862-ish, here comes the another act where that it was created to give those who are moving west an opportunity to buy land. And that act transferred, the Homestead Act of 1862, transferred over, let's say, a decade at, by the way, it was 40 acres for black people. This was about 160 acres each plot. And it transferred 270 million acres, not 400,000 acres, 270 million acres to struggling but enterprising families wanting to go west. 99.9% of those plots were given to whites. And there were government agents put in place across the country to teach those white settlers how to cultivate and work that land. Oddly enough, that land was located in places where you could grow crops of that day. It's certainly much better than the beachfront property that was given to blacks that, by the way, if I didn't mention, was taken back away from them 2 years later after Lincoln was assassinated. It was literally the new president, President Johnson, reversed effectively Field Action 15 and Reconstruction, and all that land was given back to the Confederate families that owned it beforehand. Can you imagine the indignity of this? It gets worse, though. I'm just trying to explain to you the history so you can get that out of your system, and we can move on, if you happen to be a person of color, with just putting your bucket down right now and no more excuses. I'm trying to explain to people who have privilege why you are more than just smart, and those who don't have privilege why you shouldn't be just irritated. You should be, well, success is great. If you want revenge, success is the best revenge. Just go do something. because people today didn't do this to you, right? So just go get therapy for your anger, but move forward with home ownership. But let's be honest about what happened. So the Homestead Act, May 20th, 1862, a lot of people go west, and you got 160 acres. You had to live on the land for 5 years. You had to build a dwelling, cultivate the land, and 270 million acres. That's 10% of all American land was given to these families, and most blacks were excluded. Like there were like literally a handful of plots given to blacks. So that's a huge, huge wealth creation thing. About 100 million Americans, mostly white, benefit today from the Homestead Act land. Fast forward now to the government having their turn at screwing over people of color. That was the FHA, the early 20th century, where they created redlining. It wasn't banks that created redlining, it was the federal government. They literally said, we are not going to guarantee a mortgage loan in these neighborhoods. They're dangerous. Well, guess why they're dangerous? Because the Freedmen's Bank was upended, and no one taught them free enterprise and capitalism. They were forced to go into urban ghetto areas, and they put all the poverty in one place with no jobs and no economic opportunity. And guess what happened? People need to live, and so they start stealing. Hello, it's sort of common sense. By the way, poor whites did the same thing. You have more poor whites in America than poor anybody else. That's a different podcast for a different day. So the government blamed poverty on the poor and told people to bootstrap themselves without shoelaces, and refused to insure a mortgage in a so-called poor black neighborhood. But guess where they insured the mortgages? In a white suburban neighborhood, or a suburban neighborhood that happened to be white. Well, guess where the banks wanted to write a mortgage? In places where there were insurance from the federal government. So it actually wasn't banks that were doing discrimination at that point. It was the federal government. And where did banks not want to write a mortgage? In a place that was perceived to be dangerous, where there was no mortgage insurance. And that's why you'll see properties 15 minutes apart today, to this very day, that are literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in difference or more in value. You'll have an underserved area where houses $40,000, $100,000 in value, and 15 minutes away, you'll have an area where the home is worth $750,000, $1 million, $2 million. And this was the root of that. Okay, so those are the fundamental building blocks of sort of why, well, then you have the GI Bill. This is a third punch in the nose. Blacks and whites come back from World War II, and something like 92% of all GI Bill allocations went to Caucasians. So GI Bill was as much education you shove down your throat, a skill, education for a job for the future, and a mortgage to buy a new home. And that overwhelmingly went up to also white returning GIs, and God bless them for their service. They didn't do this, the government did it. But blacks were systematically turned down, oddly enough. Well, that created the modern middle class. So voila, so they say. Okay, but now we're in a different time, and if you get your credit score up and go to Operation Hope, get your debt down, do what we're telling you, get your savings up, whether you're black or white, or red or blue, politics, whether you're urban or rural, it doesn't matter. Operation Hope can help you produce some green in your life, can help you get access to capital from one of the biggest, most prestigious banks at prime rates today, and get you in the seat to own your own home. In fact, a third of those that we serve today, well, I think it's maybe 25% of those that we serve today, are in rural America, by the way. We're serving everybody. We're serving Hispanics who speak Spanish. We're serving certainly black communities. We're serving poor white, we're serving middle class communities. We're all across the country. So now, whoever you are, we're here for you. We have millions of clients and directed $4.5 billion in prime capital, half of that is for mortgages. In fact, Fulton Bank, one of our partners, has done $1.2 billion in homeownership for black Americans alone, just in the Pennsylvania area. And then we're doing stuff with Wells Fargo and Bank of America in our Hope Inside locations, and Truist Bank. where we're seeing real results in getting people access to capital. We're raising credit scores 54 points in 6 months, lowering debt $3,800, increasing savings $1,200 for somebody making $48,000 to $50,000 a year, giving them a real shot at home ownership. So it's not about feeling sorry, it's about catching up with a plan, right? This is a plan for you. So let's now bust some big myths about home ownership. You need 20% down. Not true. It's nice to get 20% down, but there are many, many programs from FHA, oddly enough, the same organization that discriminated against blacks in the early 20th century. FHA, you can get 3.5% down payment assistance. It's 3.5% mortgage rate, and down payment assistance programs available through them. You can go to a FDIC insured bank and talk to them about their Community Reinvestment Act programs, and in some cases get a grant from them for $10,000 to help you with a down payment. Did you know that? Yes, operational coaches can help you with that. Go on your Hope in Hand app on your phone, or call the 800 number, or go to our website, operationhope.org, and one of my team members across 42 states will help you help yourself. At what fee? Zero. It's all scholarshiped for you because we raise the money on your behalf. Okay, here's a myth number 2. My credit isn't good enough. You may qualify at between 580 and 620 through one of these government programs. If you're trying to get a market rate prime bank loan, we're going to get your credit score up to close to 700, but Operation Hope is doing that. In fact, if you want to be patient and wait 24 months, we'll get your credit score up 120 points. In 18 to 24 months, we'll get it up 54 points in 6 months on average. So, in a world where you think that a lot of things are not in your control, this thing, your credit score, we can move it with your help considerably, along with getting your debt ratios down. You get your ratios right, so the bank will say yes. And we know the criteria for which the banks will want to say yes. We're the only nonprofit allowed to operate inside of a bank branch in U.S. history. Okay, here's myth number 3, and we're in all the major banks. Here's myth number 3. I'm not ready to commit. Well, renting is a commitment to someone else's wealth building, like mine. So you're already committed. Don't let the perfect be the death of the good. Just get in the game. Myth number 4, the market's too high. Well, the right time to buy is when you are financially ready to do so, not emotionally scared or scarred. There's no right time. It's just right now, right? So just do something. Just do it as soon as you can, because these prices are just going to keep going up. Myth number 5, I make too little. There are special programs designed just for you. So as long as you have good credit, a job, again, remember my mother's story. She worked an hourly job, right? And she got prime rates. You'd be surprised. I've often found that the worst fears are ones in your head. Like, things are very rarely as bad as you think they are. And what's going to happen? Worst thing that happens when you tell you no. You had no when you woke up this morning. You're starting with no. You can't fall from the floor. Just try. Just try. Get in the game. So my Hope coaches at Operation Hope will help you obtain a mortgage at prime rates and get and back into being bank qualified. Here's a step-by-step guide on how to buy a house, even if you think you can't right now. Step number 1, know your credit score. Half of black folks have a credit score below 620, so it may not be the bank discriminating against you or somebody doesn't like you. It could be your credit score. Your credit score stinks. Latinos a little bit above that, and you can be white with a 500 credit score. By the way, in fact, the biggest population of poverty in this country is poor white. So this is not discriminating. Everybody's got problems, but you can fix those problems because rainbows only follow storms. So know your credit score. I check mine once a week on my app. Pull it for free. Understand what's holding it down. Okay. And I'll do a separate podcast just on credit score, but basically the number 1 way you move that credit score is managing your consumer credit debt ratios. Ask the coach at Operation Hope when you call them about what John Bryant said, consumer credit cards, debt ratios. I'm like, what do I do? What does that mean? You want to keep your balances, by the way, at about 30% if you can. Okay, I'm not going to get into credit at the moment. I'm trying to get through the mortgage thing. You want a 700 credit score ideally. That's your target, right? And you can check your credit on the Hope Financial Wellness Index online. Search for the Hope Financial Wellness Index, type in your credit score, type in your zip code, we'll tell you your credit score. I want to thank Experian for giving us the data along with the U.S. government who helped us to map every zip code in America by credit score. Number two, budget and save for your down payment, right? So 3 to 5% minimum, realistically, 10% to 20% would be fantastic, but just do something. Just get it, just start saving, and then let's figure out, working with the coach, where there's some programs that can help you, right? Tax refunds, side hustles, and help like the earned income tax credit. That might be as much as $20,000 to help you with your down payment. Ask my coaches about that. And cut your subscriptions. All these things you subscribe to and you forget you subscribe to it on your phone, you'd be amazed how much money you can save with that. And stop smoking cigarettes. Stuff's going to kill you anyway. There's a way to save some money, or whatever else you're smoking. What else? Oh, and don't go to a coffee shop for a while. Buy a Keurig machine and make your coffee at home. It's 2 ways to make money: make more or spend less, right? So my people can get you on a budget. Number three, get pre-approved. This is really important. Like, get pre-approved. It'll boost your confidence just to get a bank to give you a pre-approval letter. Not just pre-qualified, pre-approved. Know your buying power. How much home can you afford to purchase? And then you walk into an open house with knowing that you got the power to say yes. I mean, that's really powerful negotiating tool when you can tell your realtor you already have not a pre-qualification letter, a pre-approval letter. I just had a family member get that wrong recently, and they had a pre-qualification letter and did not convert into a pre-approval letter, and they were halfway through a transaction, and now are having to figure out how to restructure it. Avoid mortgage scams, right? That's huge. There's a lot of people trying to separate you from your wallet. Number four, work with the right real estate agent, someone who advocates for you, not the seller. In my operational people can help you find the right person. Number five, understand closing process, inspection, appraisal, underwriting, title insurance on the house. Maintenance is something you're going to deal with next, but these are the things you want to make sure you get through all these steps, and don't shortcut it. You'll end up paying the price for that later if you shortcut. And if you're dealing with a bank, they're going to make you do this stuff anyway, which is good. And you might want to consider having them bake your property tax payments into your mortgage payment. At least look at what that does to your mortgage payment. And don't ask you never ask what the mortgage payment is when there's an interest rate attached. We got to stop being paymentized. What's the payment? What's the payment? What's the payment? It's even bad to do that when you're buying a car. You want to know what's the interest rate, what's the terms, and all that kind of stuff. And you don't want an adjustable rate mortgage, in my opinion. You want a fixed rate mortgage. You want to know what your payment is every month, right? Don't panic. Your team will, my team will guide you this whole process, right? Number six, celebrate and plan for what's next. Move with purpose, maintenance, equity tracking, have a long-term plan, and you can become a multimillionaire in real estate starting with your own home, using that equity as a powerful benchmark to invest in a home, invest in your kids' education, use the equity through a home equity line of credit to buy another home. We're getting ahead of ourselves. So here's some resources most people don't know about when trying to become a homeowner. FHA loans for first-time or low-income buyers. City and county down payment assistance grants, all right? CRA down payment assistance grants at banks, Community Reinvestment Act. You can ask my coaches about all this stuff. CRA loan programs, Community Reinvestment Act loan programs at banks, and also at credit unions. Credit unions are a great source of capital. You may not know that, and you may not realize you may qualify to become a member of a credit union in your neighborhood. They're low rates and low closing costs, these CRA loan programs and credit unions. I've got credit union accounts for different things. I've actually bought some cars through credit unions. They had the best rates by far. HUD housing counselors. We have HUD approved financial counselors at Operation Hope, but you want to make sure that somebody's HUD, as in U.S. Housing and Urban Development Department, HUD approved, not the Homeboy Shopping Network. So HUD housing counselors for budgeting, planning, Operation Hope homeownership coaches. It's national and it's free support. These are resources available to you that I would recommend. Home ownership is dignity, it's power, and it's yours to claim right now. So I want you to have a call to action. I want you to have a schedule to become a homeowner, a target date, and work backwards. Don't say one day, say day one. Start the journey today. Don't let the perfect become the death of the good. I want you to share this episode with others. I want you to go to Operation Hope, download the app, and sign up with a Hope Financial coach. Tell them I sent you. They'll give you a $1,000 coaching scholarship package to start with. So none of our coaching will cost you any money. You get serious about this, I'll upgrade you to the next level of this coaching scholarship, which I think is valued at $5,000. Again, you have to invest your time and energy. Our payoff is seeing you successful. And we're going to help you get your credit score up 54 points in 6 months. Your debt down $3,800 for somebody making $48,000, $50,000. Your savings up $1,200 so the bank can get out of the no business and back into the yes business at scale. Right? We're in half of Truist branches. We're in Wells Fargo branches. We're in U.S. Bank branches, Synovus Bank branches, Regions Bank, First Horizon Bank branches, Santander Bank. I mentioned Bank of America. We have child's accounts with Citigroup. We're supported by J.P. Morgan Chase in other ways. It's just so it's easier to tell you what banks we're not in than to tell you what banks we are in because if it's a well-known bank, it's a very BMO Harris, all these folks, it's a very good chance that we're their partners. So go to our Operation Hope website or go online to the Open Hand app. Tell them I sent you. It's John Hope Bryant. This is Money and Wealth, and this is the first door to you building wealth is homeownership. And tell these people that tell you not to own a home that they're stupid. No, not they're stupid, but they're saying stupid stuff, and you tell them I said it. People, again, next time you hear a wealthy person telling you that you shouldn't buy a house, look at them in the face and say, don't you own a house? Watch their face just drop. All right, love you. Tell your friends and subscribe to this podcast. I'll see you here this time next week. Get my book, Financial Literacy for All. I've already said, go to Operation Hope. Love and light. This is a civil rights movement to civil rights. From civil rights in the streets to civil rights in the suites. I'm out.